Morning everyone, Derek and Polly here from A Guy, a Girl, and a Campervan. Since it's such a gorgeous weekend, we decided that we would splurge and get another campsite, and this time we even got one with water and electrical hookups. And since we have all of that, we decided that it would be a good opportunity to answer one of the questions that we get asked the most, which is, how do we use our toilet? And more specifically, how were we able to continue using our toilet all winter when it was below freezing for almost 4 months straight? So, in this video, we're going to answer that question. How do we use the toilet?
Maybe we'll show you how the toilet works, not how we use the toilet.
Yeah, that's better. So before we show you how our toilet works in the winter, we thought it might be a pretty good idea to show you how it's meant to work in the rest of the year. So we mentioned in our first video that we've got all of these hookups on the side. The only one we're going to concern ourselves with this time is this one. So inside this door, we have two separate water hookups. You see, our van is very similar to your typical house. If your house is located in the city, you're probably connected to a municipal water supply, which is pressurized. So as soon as you turn on your tap, the water is forced through your pipes and into your sink. As soon as you flush your toilet, same thing. But if instead your house is located in the country, there is no water supply from the municipality, so there is no pressure. So instead you have your own water pump that pumps the water from the ground and into your house. So underneath the ground you've got a well, and your well is kind of like a private water tank. In the van, we have exactly the same thing. So this connection right here, which looks like that of your outside tap for a garden hose, this is what we plug into when we're in a campground, and the pressurized water from their system goes into ours. And we don't have to use a pump, the water just gets forced right through our taps. But we're usually not in a campground, so instead we can undo this cap and we can use this same hose to fill up our water tank, kind of like our well. Our tank holds 16 gallons, or 60 liters, which we found is usually enough to get us through about 2 weeks without having to refill it, as long as we ration it a little bit. This is our last day in the campground for the weekend, so we figure we might as well show you what it's like to actually fill up that tank. First of all, we take this end and screw it onto the tap that's provided from the campground on our site. This is just like any other tap that you would have outside your house in your backyard. Once it's nice and tight, we take the other end and run it over here. And now we turn it on. While that's filling up, I'll tell you a little bit about how our tanks work. First of all, we have the tank that I mentioned, our freshwater tank. And then we also have two others. If you saw our first video, you may remember us mentioning the gray water tank and the black water tank. The black water tank is the storage tank for our sewage when we flush our toilet. The gray water tank is where our sink drains into. Both of those need to be dumped periodically in order to make room for more storage. Oh, guess it's full.
We're back inside after filling our freshwater tank, so let's look at the gauges. You'll notice that it is showing that our freshwater is full, and it's also showing that we are fully charged, which makes sense because we were plugged in for the whole evening last night. Beside that is our switch for our 12-volt pump. In order to access the water to flush our toilet, because we're not plugged into anywhere, we need to just simply flick this switch on, and there we go. Welcome to our washroom. Now don't get scared. Derek did say that we were going to show you how to use our toilet, but in fact I'm going to show you how the toilet works. So we mentioned in an earlier video that when you open the door, this becomes a privacy wall, and you can see there's not much room in here. In order to use the toilet, obviously, like any other toilet, you just lift the lid, you do your thing, and when it's time to flush, you just pull the lever on the side, and the water goes down and you can hear the pump pumping the water.
So most RVs are stored during the colder months because they're not in use. And when you store an RV over the winter, you need to do something about the water that's left in the system, because if any of that water were to freeze, it could burst your pipes, crack your tanks, break your pump, etc. So, most people flush out all the water and fill their system instead with something like this, Plumbers Antifreeze. Plumbers Antifreeze stays liquid until minus 20 degrees Celsius and is what's called burst proof until minus 50 degrees Celsius. Burst proof basically means that it may turn into a bit of a slush or a sludge, but it never actually freezes solid, so it doesn't expand and won't break any of the parts of your system. So, when we had to try and figure out a way to keep our toilet running in below zero temperatures, after thinking about a bunch of different options, this is what we came up with. So, we first tried just simply pouring this directly into the intake, but unfortunately, the angle just didn't work. So then we got ourselves a nice big funnel and we tried that, but because the intake goes almost completely horizontal, that didn't work either. So next, we got another idea. We decided to get one of these transfer pumps. It's kind of like a bilge pump that you would use in a canoe or a kayak, where you would put one end into the kayak and you would pump it and it would pump the water out. The only difference is that this time we put one into our jug of antifreeze, one into our intake, and then we would pump. Now I'm not going to pump now because obviously it isn't winter anymore and we don't want to put antifreeze into our fresh water. But essentially you just hand pump it until you empty your jug and fill your tank.
And we're back in the washroom. I always thought being on camera would be more glamorous. Anyways, in the wintertime, whenever we would flush our toilet, instead of the water going down and flushing, we would actually just have the pink antifreeze that would circulate and go down. Now, sometimes in the wintertime, we actually hit temperatures that were minus 30 degrees Celsius, which is minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit. On those days and nights, the antifreeze is no longer liquid. It would actually turn to like a slushy, sludgy, and therefore our pump would not pump it. So on those nights, we simply just turn the pump off, but we still needed to balance it out because you can't have liquid going in to freeze. So we had extra antifreeze in the actual camper here, and so we would simply just pour extra antifreeze in and flush it that way.
So Plumbers Antifreeze is non-toxic, environmentally friendly, and generally considered safe for the pipes within your plumbing system. But it's probably a good idea that you read the back of the jug just to make sure that it's appropriate for your particular application. When your blackwater tank is full, you want to make sure that you dump it the same way you always do in a proper RV dumping facility, such as this one at the campground. Now you know why I was wearing gloves. So that's it. Our toilet basically works the same way that a normal RV toilet works, and in the winter, the only difference is that the liquid is pink instead of clear. We've been doing this for just over 11 months now, and the winter we did for just over about 4 months, I guess. Yeah. About 4 months we did with the antifreeze. So what'd you think?
Well, it was, I gotta say that I think the whole adventure of being in the van, that was one of my most scariest moments, is not being able to use a toilet. So when Derek came up with this idea, I think that made things feel so much more better. I felt much better. That's better.
So any other couple that's thinking about doing this, chances are it's not going to be the guy who's going to be worried about the toilet in the winter.
Yeah.
Do you have any comments or advice to the girl in that situation?
The only thing I could say is that as long as you are using the proper amounts of antifreeze to liquid, there is no difference in using the toilet. So I would absolutely tell someone to not worry about that, because it really wasn't a concern.
The only difficulty I think that we really had was finding places to dump our blackwater tank in the winter.
Yeah.
There's campgrounds around in the summer, and so that's not a problem. But in the winter, all those campgrounds in our area, at least, they all close down, and so there's a couple different places that we were able to find that allow you to come 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. But they don't really maintain them all that well in the winter because chances are we were the only ones using them. And so there was one time where we went to a water treatment plant for the city we were in at that point. And basically it's their dumping station is essentially just a hole in the pavement in like a parking lot, which is no big deal except for the fact that over the winter the snowplows would come and just plow right over top of it. So we ended up having a situation where we had to dig through the ice for several hours before we could actually find the hole. There was a good probably 6 inches of ice on top of it, which was pretty annoying.
We actually we had to chop it away, but then I was inside the van boiling hot water.
That's right.
And pouring hot water on it to try to melt the ice so that we could actually find this hole that we needed in order to dump.
Once we finally found the hole, that's awesome. The hole's there, but through like all the way down the hole was completely frozen too, and so the boiling water allowed us to finally melt it, and then we could dump. So even though everything in our tank was liquid, I guess we weren't able to count on the dumping station to be thawed out as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I probably can guess your next question that you're going to have for us, and that's how did we have water then? What did we do for cooking and washing our hands and all those different questions? We literally just poured water in. That's how we did it.
Yeah, so we had jugs of water that we would fill up wherever we were, wherever it was convenient. Most of the time, we ended up filling up water at our work, and so we'd come in with 4-liter jugs because the sink itself was winterized, so we couldn't get any water from it, obviously, and we couldn't dump any water down the sink either because it was all winterized. So for that, sometimes we would dump it in the toilet if we were lazy, and other times we would actually put it in a jug and then save it essentially until we could dump it at the facility. So it definitely was a lot more complicated. Life is a lot more easy now that we're able to use all of our plumbing as it was intended to be used.
Absolutely. Now it's a breeze. I'm almost sitting here thinking, I could keep going.
Yeah, wait till December.
Yeah,
comes.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's it. That's how we use everything in the winter. Basically same as the summer, just pink instead of clear. Things are easy now, and hopefully they'll stay that way for a little longer.
Fingers crossed.
What are you doing?
Get the bugs. Are you taping me?
Yes.
I thought you said the memory card was full.
I was kidding.
Ah, you goo. Nonetheless. Ah!
What the heck was that? Okay. Allows us to actually fill a 16... What?
There's a frog.
Oh my god, there's a frog. That's a toad.
Oh, that's a toad.